that's the motion. That's not
exactly. Which is why, at that point, you shouldn't spend longer than 30 seconds, if that, on this. Because, think of why that might be.
It's Magic Land. Because Magic Land. And
Yeah.
like,
It's Magic Land, and Prop can stand up and go, look, everyone knows what an advert is, you imbecile. It's like basically that thing on TV which has a sexy woman draped over a can of Coke.
I think the United States Supreme Court definition for porn works here perfectly. I know one when I see one.
Yeah. So if you spend if you spend like 30 seconds on this, and if Prop can just stand up and within 5 seconds say, look, everyone knows what an advert is, and we're debating in principle whether or not that thing should be gone or not. You've just lost a 14th of your speech to approximately 7 seconds. That's why in Magic Land, that's not the best idea. But then we've got a lot of really good principles. So yeah, I love this is one which took me the second debate to get to, the identification with brands. So if we don't have a shared understanding of what Coca-Cola means or what Nike means, how can I then have meaning when I walk around wearing that Nike t-shirt? It's now just a red t-shirt. Before, it was the t-shirt that LeBron James wore when he slam dunked to win, like the NBA, whatever it is, the playoffs. And then my shoes are the shoes which were worn by, I don't know, let's say Tom Cruise in that film. And as a result, like I really associate with that. I lose that. So that's a pure principle argument. We've got the when do we limit the freedoms? And so how much harm does it take? Is there really that much harm? That's where we're going to do the majority of our rebuttal, presumably, because the whole first proposition case is about this is causing lots and lots of harms. If we can say, actually, those harms are either non-existent or aren't that great, and then show that they, at the very least, do not reach the level at which we would ban something, that's the argument, as given by Daniel and then from the back. We've got this drives the capitalist system, and we've got this will completely hamper innovation. We then also have some negative consequences of doing this. One of them is part of that, obviously, all of those principles are negative consequences, but we've also got sort of, if you like, unprincipled negative consequences. There are going to be lots of unemployed people as a result of this. I'm not sure that that's that strong. Like, I actually would love it if people in marketing departments were unemployed because they're scum, but you know, Prop might say that. But the buyer gaining advantage is an interesting one, and you'd want to go into the mechanics of how you get that information across. Yeah. What we want to do is build the case. You've got principles, and you're going to have to explain those. We're going to have to order those. And there's going to be, when we go through this, we'll come up with some rules as to what works when and what doesn't, particularly in Magic Land. So, is this, if I draw up here, by the way, this is so not going to be a 1 hour session, this is so a 2 hour session, but anyway. Is that someone coming in?
I'm sorry, is it cold enough here?
I'm fine.
You're fine.
colder.
Should we have it colder?
Yes, yes.
Can we have it colder?
What?
Can we have it colder?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I am actually sweating where I'm sitting, even though it's...
Your proportions change completely. Like this turns to fine suddenly.
Yeah. After outside. Okay, so when you're building your case, obviously you've got your opening line. We've already accepted it's Magic Land, so you might want to say, obviously in the real world, this would lead to the complete and utter destruction of like the capitalist system, the media, the sponsored art, and obviously there are problems with identifying what adverts are, what they're not. We're going to engage completely and utterly with what Prop have brought. This is whether or not it would be if you would start from scratch. If we were to create a new system, would we have advertising in it or would we not? If you're in Magic Land. So that's your, if you like, setting the terms. Just to give this, like, setting terms. In the Turkey case, how would you set the terms in first op? Your initial opening gambit. It's a real, this is a real world debate. you're likely to want to set the terms in that debate as well, right?
So it's obvious that every small consequence can be very big, so to base it solely on principle will not work, and your principles bring real ramifications, result in real lives and real harm, so we can't afford to do that. So bear that in mind before I begin or something.
Exactly. So you might want to, or you might want to turn that into a rhetorical flourish, of course. You might want to go up there and say, the European Union is struggling at the moment with a broken economy and a ruptured social context, where there's already a problem with Muslims across Europe, and they have problems. And the economy in Eastern Europe, Ireland, in Greece, in Spain, in Portugal, is dying. We believe that Turkey coming in will make all of that even worse. So you open up and it becomes quite clear that you are the team of practical realities. In this case, if you stand up and you say, look, it's going to ruin the media, which means that you won't get democratic thought, that's probably something you can say, but that's not your opening gambit. And this is a big debate we had in the car, and I'm going to probably finish on that debate, because that's very interesting. Now, you've got your setting of terms. Then you want to find the biggest principle that you have, or the one from which the majority of your material flows. So this one, it's either going to be, when do we limit things, or it's going to be, this drives the capitalist economy. We know that innovation flows from the capitalist economy. Yep.
In situations where I decide I want to go with this is how the capitalist economy works, I'm not so sure Prop is going to argue with me at that. Am I not taking, and this is, I assume, part of what you meant, taking too huge of a burden because I now have to prove that capitalism is the best thing for you in a compelling way?
Yep. No, I think what you need to do there is show that if you drive demand, and that if you're driving more demand in this context, then that leads to economic growth, and then you're comparing economic growth with what they're saying, which is the absolute relative poverty that people feel. And you say, we accept that people have relative poverty. Our direct response is, that is a good thing, because that is what drives you to want to be better. That's what drives you to education. That's why we don't live in mud huts anymore. It's actually not that big a burden, because the moment you can say, we don't live in mud huts anymore, we don't die aged 40, our teeth don't fall out, capitalism is quite a good thing, I think you at least throw to them the burden to show why a different system might be better, or why this is still capitalism, but with a pernicious part of it taken out.
Yeah.
But I still think that it's likely that even that flows after the when should we stop things. Because that's actually the point, because even the capitalism one is us weighing the harm on one side of that relative poverty that you feel, and on the other side, the drive that you would want. That's still weighing things. So at the very start, you'll want to say, how do we weigh this? At what point do we say, you ban something, you stop people from expressing their point of view? And you go into that analysis. So you start with the big rights in this type of magic land thing. Or would you start somewhere else, I'd ask. This is just one way of doing this case.
When do we limit, I think, is fair.
Sorry?
So the one I think is fair. I mean, you'd probably start it with the issue of choice. Now society allows many, many freedoms. When do we not? It's just like, I'd say, coming backwards. It's not that when do we limit, it's we don't limit. If we do limit, it's for very extreme cases, then show why this doesn't fall into that.
Mm-hmm. So you start with, in general terms though, you start with the big principle that you identified. So, in the Turkey debate, the big principle for you was that actually in international politics, practicalities overrides everything. That's still a principle, right? That's not you just saying, we're only going to engage in practicalities in this debate. But the point is, in opposition, in the same way that proposition have to define the motion, set their burdens, bring out their principles, and then identify the various positive things that will happen as a result of what they're doing,